Hello, welcome in everyone. It's Tammy Mastroberte with Elevated Existence Magazine, and I am excited to introduce you to an amazing author who has a brand new book out called Joy Seeker. And we are going to get right into the whole Joy Seeker journey and explain all of it to you. Her name is Shannon Kaiser. She's the best-selling author of 5 books on psychology and happiness and fulfillment, and she's the #1 best-selling author of The Self-Love Experiment and Adventures of Your Soul. She's been named a top 100 women to watch by Wellness by Mind Body Green, and your go-to happiness booster by Health Magazine, and so much more. Today, we are talking about her newest book, like I said, Joy Seeker. Let go of what's holding you back so you can live the life you were made for. And I literally just finished reading this book a couple of days ago. I'm so excited to jump into some of these topics that really stood out for me. I think you guys are going to love this. So Shannon, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. This is great to be with you.
Yes. So, okay, Joy Seeker. This book, it's sort of like, we go on a journey with you, which my first question is going to start off with what started you on this journey. But we sort of go on your journey as a joy seeker and become a joy seeker ourselves as we're sort of going through it. At least that's my interpretation of it. But what you explain in the book is that your sort of journey for joy and seeking out joyous situations and what brings you more joy, which then brings us everything, was actually the death of your dog. And that sort of sparked this journey to basically travel around the world.
Yes.
So can you share sort of a little bit about that and how this whole thing started and then eventually wound up becoming this book?
Yeah, and you're exactly right. A lot of my writing and the work that I do is I process it and I write about it, and then it becomes this teachable moment and this kind of sharing. And the Joy Seeker book was really considered calling it the Joy Seeker journey in the beginning. And it started actually a decade ago. I was in a completely different career. I was in advertising and I actually hit rock bottom. I was in a really dark place. I was addicted to drugs and I was suffocating from depression. And I left the industry because I realized I needed to follow my heart. And this is actually my 10-year anniversary, like this year. So and it's like October is the 10-year anniversary. October 13th is when it all kind of came.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is actually, I just realized the timing. So it's interesting because I left to follow my heart and become a writer, and I started to write books, and I was writing books about how to be happy and how to find self-love. And it was amazing. But I didn't realize at the time is I had adopted a dog when I was depressed. I was diagnosed with clinical depression. The very first thing I did is I volunteered at an animal shelter and I brought Tucker into my life, and Tucker became my joy. He helped pull me out by having this joy bubble. Anybody who's an animal lover, but I think a lot of us, we put joy outside of ourselves, and that's really what I was doing. And it wasn't until he died 2 years ago that a part of me died. And here I was building this fulfilling career. I had more self-love and I was talking about fulfillment, but there was a piece of me that realized I was still looking outside of myself for joy. And when that joy physically left, I was left with questioning, what do I really want? Who am I? And where does joy really exist? And I asked myself, and I think we should all ask ourselves, what's something I've always wanted to do? And like a racehorse out of the gate, my inner voice said, travel the world for a full year. And I thought, why am I not doing that? As a coach, as an author, and a mentor, I can work from anywhere as a speaker. So I set out to do that. And I wasn't even planning on writing the book. The journey created the book. And so it's not really about my travel. I use examples, but really it's about how we can actualize ourselves in the world, because that's what was missing. I wasn't fully self-actualized.
So what do you mean by self-actualized?
I mean, it's really about authentic living. It's about us being who we are at a core, at our soul level, and existing unapologetically in the world. And every single one of us has something that's different, that makes us unique, but we're not actually living to that potential. And that's really what the Joy Seeker journey is.
Right. So that was my next question is how would you define a joy seeker? What is a joy seeker?
That's such a great question. Just saying it brings a lot of joy to you, So a joy seeker is someone who is true to themselves and living from their heart. It's someone who is in integrity and loving life because they're literally choosing to live from their heart, and that's what it is.
Yes, yes. Don't mind my cat's tail. She
I was
comes
like,
in.
your cat's tail's amazing. I want to go pet your
She
cat.
legitimately comes into every interview and I can't stop her because if I lock her out, she'll scream outside the office doors.
Yeah, it's so cute. It's like, there's a little tail.
Yeah, everybody who watches my videos knows she's like always there.
It's just
Okay, so perfect. So I want to start off. So the book actually, in the beginning of the book, you start off with what you call energy suckers and letting go of energy suckers. And I think that's such a big piece of joy, is that sometimes it's hard for us to find because we are so weighed down by the people around us, the things that we're watching or doing and not even realizing it. So like the news, which I have to say is a big one. So what would you say are some of the biggest energy suckers that we should be aware of? And then how can we start detoxing from that?
So energy suckers are really anything that takes us outside of ourselves. And in our world, in our culture and society right now, I really feel the number one thing that keeps us from reaching joy is all of the energy suckers. But the main one, of course, we've heard is fear. But where does that fear exist? It's in the media. Fear, a lot of the news and media, it's just a lot of fear-based reactions. One of the ones that we don't often think about is we want so much to fit in that we shy away from who we really are. We won't speak up. And there's a whole section on speaking your truth, saying what you need to say, because what happens is we build up resentment about other people because we're not speaking how we really feel. So that's a big energy sucker. And then another one that's actually blocks a lot of us is we put other people on pedestals and we specialize them, especially with social media. You look out, you compare yourself to someone else, and we start feeling not as good, and we feel unworthy. But even in our own life, and I actually was specializing Tucker. I loved him. He was my little soulmate buddy and my dog. I loved him. And we do this sometimes with family members because I put all of my joy in him. And before him, I would do it in relationships. I needed a man to make me feel better about myself. And that is another thing that prevents us from really, again, it's about going inward and knowing who you are. And when you know who you are, you can be who you are, and you are actualized in the world.
Yes, yes. And I have to say, you have a new dog too, right?
I do, Chance. So that's something interesting because I traveled the world for a whole year, almost a whole year.
Alert from Google Chrome.
Oops, I'm not sure if you guys. I thought I turned that off. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
My Australian hot dudes talking on the computer here. So I traveled the world, and what I was doing in the beginning was checking all these things off the bucket lists. Like, I got to go see the Eiffel Tower. I got to go see this. And it was like, this is my year to just live full out. And about 3 months in, it started to feel very, I want to say almost superficial. I didn't feel connected to the places that I was going. And that's when I recognized, and that's what the Joy Seeker journey takes you on, is we have these dreams that we chase, but really it's why we want those dreams. And what I recognized is I really was traveling the world. Yes, it was a goal of mine, but what I wanted was more meaning and connection and joy in my life. And so I thought living this dream would create that. So once I recognized that, I actually said, well, how can I put more meaning and connection and joy into this experience? And that led me to fly to China to help rescue dogs that were part of the meat trade.
Yeah.
And that's how I brought Chance back to America. His name is Chance for Second Chance at Life. And that was the most fulfilling thing of all of looking back of my life, was being able to make a difference by helping the animals in need and bringing one back into my home.
Yes, yes. And you guys can see him on Shannon's Instagram.
I post him a lot.
Does he have his own Instagram as well?
He does, because I feel like me posting him a lot on my page, people are like, okay, great, enough. But dog lovers might go to his Instagram. It's like Chance_golden love, but I love it. He's such a cuddler, and he is my joy. But it's different than when I had Tucker, because I was dependent on Tucker. It was almost this code, because he pulled me out of depression, that relationship. I stopped my eating disorders. I left a career that I hated. Whereas now I can exist with Chance side by side. I come to him whole. And it's almost like if you're in a relationship, a lot of us are codependent on other things, and we need something outside of ourselves to make us complete. what the Joy Seeker book and the process and all the coaching I do, it's really about you being complete as you are. And that's really what I mean by self-actualized. It's about self-love. And then every experience you go to, whether it's getting a job that you really want, a relationship, a dog from China, right? You feel more fulfillment because it comes from within.
Yes, 100%. And one of the things that you, one of the lines that stuck out that I pulled out of the book was you said, instead of learning to be happy where you were, you learned to be happy with who you were. Yes. And I thought, oh man, that's awesome. So can you explain sort of what is the difference between being happy where we are and being happy with who we are, and why is that so important?
Huge. And this whole process really taught me that. Like I said, it's interesting because I find that so many of us are chasing this happiness or joy, or we don't even know, but we're looking outside of ourselves. And as we get to these new situations, we realize, wait a second, I really wanted this. I'm looking around at the house or the career, the relationship, the soulmate, and it doesn't feel like what I thought. And that's exactly what was happening for me. And it's because I was always trying to find something to be happy about. And it wasn't until I looked inward. And this was interesting because I had just wrote a whole book about self-love 2 years ago called The Self-Love Experiment. And I thought I mastered this. I was like, I love myself. I'm good. I accepted my body. And now but it wasn't until I realized I was chasing my dreams still with a desire to try to fulfill me. So really what this is about is we have to become happy with ourselves. And then no matter what situation you're in, no matter what, you will really feel a sense of inner calm and more peace and fulfillment.
Yes. Yes. I love that. So there's so much in the book. So I'm highlighting the big nuggets. So the other nugget that stuck out to me is you were talking about sort of identifying patterns that we find ourselves in, or, different areas of our life that we want to change. And sort of an aha that came through the book was you had said, identify the pattern or where you want to change, and then identify how it's actually helping you, or what you said was keeping you safe.
Yes.
Can you go into that a little deeper? Because I think a lot of times people will think, well, I don't want this. What do you mean it's helping me? It's not helping me. But if you keep doing it, there's got to be something, some payoff, right? So can you share sort of how people go about that, and then how they would go about shifting out of that?
Yes, this is great because a lot of us have self-sabotaging habits or patterns that we do, whether it's overeating or overspending or picking fights with people. Like there's something, if I were to ask any of us, there's something in your life right now that you wish wasn't there. And It's almost like we keep doing it. We know how to get out of it. We have all these tools, all the spiritual, we're reading all the books, but we keep falling into this pattern. And what I really recognized, and this is where the psychology comes in, and we get a gain through the thing that's causing us pain, or else we wouldn't do it. We would not do it. It would heal and be gone and out of our life. So, and we're always trying to, so let's just take overeating, for example. That was something that I did for a while. And while I was doing it, I would beat myself up emotionally, physically, and be like, oh, I can't believe you're doing it again. You're eating the chips. Why? You know better, But then you go a little bit deeper and you ask yourself, well, why am I really doing this? At the time, I had a belief that I was carrying through my life that you're unworthy, you don't belong, you have to work really hard to make things happen. And so to kind of soothe that belief or anything in that situation, you would do the habit, right? And we do these things. So in the moment, temporarily, it will make us feel better. But when you go a little bit deeper, what we realize is our beliefs create our reality. So if you have a belief that you're unlovable, which was the biggest belief of mine, then I will do things in the physical sense to create that belief. So my body would get bigger, or I would push people away. And so what we have to do is look at why we're doing it. And then the most important thing is, what are you gaining? Once you see what you're gaining, you develop a practice of finding better solutions. But it's not just that easy. I know going to the gym longer and eating a salad instead of whatever is going to probably help my body. But what we really have to do is get to the first time that we felt that belief. So if I had a belief that I didn't belong, and I talk about this in the book as well, I had to go back to the original very first time. And a lot of us don't want to go back. We just want to move forward. But the belief happened when we were young. So I did a shamanic journey, and I went back and I meditated. We don't all have to do shamanic journeys. You can sit on your couch and say, let's really go inward and think about my life. But most of the time you think about the belief that was created between age 3 and 5. Usually something happened where you created that belief. For me, I went back to the very first day of my life, and I was actually, I had a belief that I don't belong, I'm unlovable. And the very first day of my life, I was a premature baby. I was rushed to the hospital. I was only 3 pounds when I was born, and I was in an incubator for like the first 3 months of my life. Now, as an adult, you don't think about that.
Right.
But I remember doing this exercise where you identify the pattern, the belief, go back to the first time it happened. I remember looking out through this incubator. The memory came back to me because you do the work, right? And I saw the doctors, and I created a belief that everyone's out there. I'm on the outside looking in. I'm in here. Something's wrong with me. I don't belong. I'm unlovable. And so that belief created every pattern after. Once I got back to the original belief, you can shatter it. And I took big adult me, hugged little me, and that's what I say. We have to be who we needed to be when we were younger. And that's really what that process is about. So today that belief, and you shatter the belief immediately, and I no longer overeat, or I no longer pick fights or any of those habits, because that belief is eradicated and you return to truth, which is your love and light, right?
Right, absolutely. And you say, like, once you identify sort of how it's helping you and you have that aha, you can from that place also sort of choose a different pattern of behavior. So like you said, instead of maybe overeating or shopping when you shouldn't be shopping, or whatever sort of addictive behavior might be giving you that payoff, you can plan in advance, like instead of doing this, I can go for a walk, or I can do X, Y, and Z, to have those tools available to you the next time you find yourself in that situation.
And that's exactly it. Creating a list, and I talk about that too, creating a list of your go-tos. So having a good news buddy where you call a friend, or, we're part of a program, Mastermind, together. And I love when we connect, because you're connecting with people of like-minded and like heart. Having this list, whether you write it out, it's helpful to write it out, but it can be anything from self-care to taking a bath or going outside to be in nature. But you do these in that moment, and you will find that it's much easier to heal the pattern. Also, when you bring self-compassion to it, that really helps, because we have to be kind to ourselves through this process, for sure.
Yes, 100%. Another piece is, it's a huge piece. You talk about fear, right? And I think that you say something about letting go of letting fear control you.
Yeah.
And so many of us sort of get caught up in fear, and we look at fear as though it's actually a bad thing, right? Or it's a negative thing and nobody wants to feel it. But what I like about how you transform that is that you say fear is actually a good thing, because it's letting you know where you're playing safe in life.
Yeah.
And we need to know that so that we can grow. So can you share a little bit about that, and maybe give an example of how something like that would play out?
So yes, so important. And I call it the good fear. So often we say fear's bad. We shouldn't have the fear, like you said, but all fear really is good, to the point that you said. It's showing us where we're playing safe. But most importantly, if we understand fear, we can understand that it's trying to help us, because fear is a lot like a wounded, abandoned child in that sense. It's going to act out and need your attention and scream like it's having a fit on the toy store, like you're at the toy store and it's freaking out and getting all mad at you because it's not getting what it wants. That's what happens. And so if we can address our fear by saying, what is it? Why are you here first? And this is a process we can all go through, and then kind of almost have a conversation with it and allow it to coexist with you. Because the truth is, to be human, to be here, we have egos, we have fear. And so for us to think that we're supposed to live this fearless life, or the fear is supposed to, you're enlightened when your fear is gone, all of that is kind of an illusion. What we can do, though, is allow the fear to work with us. And so this looks like a couple days before I left for my trip. And the fear got so loud that it was debilitating. It was about 48 hours before I left for my one-way ticket around the world. And I couldn't even get out of bed. I was like, do I need to go to the doctor? I can't breathe. I was like, what? And it was like, my inner critic was like, Shannon, you're so stupid. Why are you traveling for a whole year? Who do you think you are? This is the dumbest thing. And it's because I was getting ready to play full out. This was the biggest dream in my heart of hearts. For over 2 decades, I wanted to travel and live, independent, location independent. And so the fear got so loud, and all I had to do was be with it. And I implemented what we just talked about, the kind of list of your go-tos. And I called one of my best friends. I journaled. I spent time in nature. I took I took like 3 baths that day with Epsom salt. And all we have to do is be with the fear and recognize that it's here to show us something. And ultimately, fear comes to us because it's terrified that you might make a mistake. And so we have this big fear that like, oh, I'm going to make a mistake. But what it's really doing, the real thing is it's only worried that you won't need it anymore. Because if you move through it, you realize you're living your life more fulfilled, and it doesn't have a place in your day-to-day existence. So for me, it went away actually, not even a full day later. It was a few hours later. And I recognized that this is just part of the process. My fear is here to try to help me so I can coexist with it. And once you do, it moves out of your life and you're able to step into the next level you, which is fearless, really.
Yes, I love that. Another point is you talk about creating your ideal life. And there's a couple of different pieces in the book about this. And I wrote down the question because I thought, oh my gosh, everybody at some point in their life needs to ask themselves this question. And the question is, if time, money, energy, and resources and other people were not an issue, what would you want to do with your day? How would you spend your life? And if you knew you could not fail, what would you do?
Yes.
And I love that question because that takes the fear of failure out. It takes all these external factors out. It's just like if everything worked out amazingly perfectly for you and you could do whatever the heck you wanted and there was nothing holding you back, what would you do? How would you spend your time? How would you spend your day? And then another piece of it later in the book, you talk about just spending 3 to 5 minutes sort of visualizing that each day.
Yeah.
Why is this so powerful, and how did this process work for you?
Well, what's really interesting is last year when I was traveling full time, it was the most abundant, rich, fulfilling. Like I made more money in my business than any other year prior. I made more deep connections. I felt more connected to myself, my spirituality, my higher self, and my family, even though they were in a different country. The point being is I asked myself that question: if time, money, energy, and other people weren't a factor, what would I do? And it was like, I want to be the person who travels the world and sees this glorious earth. I want to be a writer who's working from different countries. You actualize yourself from a place of who you are at a soul level. That question gets in touch with who you are, and you are always rewarded. Because when you step into who you really are, you are able to take steps where the universe comes in and supports you. And so often we're sitting in our chair saying, well, I don't know if I can take that step because I don't know what's going to happen. I really want to go back to school. I really want to start this business. I really want to end, a specific venture, whatever it is. And we sit in a place and we overthink it. The real work and the magic is to take steps. And I say, we learn the way on the way. As soon as you get clear, you take that step forward. And when you do, you are rewarded with what you need to kind of exist at this next level. But so often we don't allow ourselves to go there. And that's where visualization goes in. If you can visualize it, if you can see it in your mind, then it's already yours. We let go of the timing. We let go of the how. We start to do guided action, and guided is the key word. When you get in touch with your intuition, you start to recognize I'm being guided, like to read certain blogs, to read certain books, to talk to people. It's all part of your journey to really live the life you're meant to. And that's why it's called Let Go of What's Holding You Back and Live the Life You're Made For, because the whole second section of the book is like, what are you made for? Be that person in this world. Also, life is really like time's running up. Life is short. And we feel like, okay, yeah, we're here for a while. But in all actuality, we get to make our life what we want. We get to create it, and it's up to us.
Yes, yes. Okay, so we're talking about a joy seeker, right? So it's all about like seeking joy, finding joy, being joyful, feeling joyful. That's when everything sort of seems to fall into place for us, when we're kind of at that level. But you also say that so many of us hide from our own feelings, right? We don't allow ourselves to feel our feelings, which is why all of these other behaviors come into play, that we wind up, these negative patterns wind up coming into play. And even though we're seeking joy, we have to also release the need to feel good all of the time.
Yes.
So,
that's like a big one.
Yes. So can you explain to everybody, like, how can we seek joy, but then be okay with not feeling joyful?
Yes, that's a great question, because the book is not called like Joy Beer or
Right.
Joy Exister. It's about the seeking, and that's really the payoff of the whole entire process and all of the work I do. It is about knowing that as long as we're seeking, growing, learning more about ourselves, that's the real reward. And the joy can be in the moments of sadness, in the moment of grief, in the moment of desperation and stuckness, because we're now allowing ourselves to live our life as life is presenting itself to us, versus us thinking it has to be a certain way. And another one of the energy suckers, if you will, or the big barrier, is that we do feel, especially in the spiritual community and the wellness community and just on a personal development plan, that we have to be happy all the time. I have some life coaching friends who will not pick up the phone when I call them just to check in if they're not feeling good, because they feel like a fraud. They feel like I have to feel good all the time. And if I'm teaching this, I'm helping people, but something about me, it messes with our psyche. So there's a whole section about allowing yourself to be where you are as you are. And honestly, that is really where the rich parts are, because you want to connect with people in their vulnerability. We want to be able to connect with people wherever they're at versus having to be fixed. So that's kind of what that's about.
Yes. And I love that. Because I'm like, that's so perfect that you're talking about, joy but then sometimes I think we do get down on ourselves when I don't want to say fall off the joy wagon, but when something happens, then we beat ourselves up for not feeling good, or allowing this depression in, or allowing this anxiety in, or allowing et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's a good thing that needs to sort of be pointed out to people, is that it's okay to feel crappy sometimes.
Yeah.
And just embrace that and then move back to joy.
It's so important. And in fact, like just as an example, this morning before we got on the interview, I had a lot of crazy happen and mishaps. And so today it's almost like I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And you probably wouldn't know right now, because I am in such joy being here with you. And what I did before is I went outside into nature. I earthed myself. I touched, I had a cuddle session with my dog. I drank extra water. I went through all of the tools, and that's really what it's about. It's about not getting hung up in here and hooking into, because that's what happens, one thing after another. It's about dropping into your heart. And when your heart is leading, we're present. And the ultimate process of Joy Seeker is teaching us how to be present. Like the biggest gift that journey gave me is to no longer need tomorrow or be happy with something outside of myself. It's about being present today and knowing that this is all we have, this moment. And that's a beautiful gift when you allow yourself to say, I can be present even in whatever is presenting itself to me.
Yes. And oh my gosh, that leads great into the next question that I have, which is perfect. So the next question is, okay, when we are trying to change something in our lives, when we are unhappy with something and are looking towards something else, whether we're talking about manifesting or whatever it might be, I think one of the biggest places that people get stuck is we're told to let go of the outcome. And I think the biggest thing with that is you have to, and what you say in the book is, you have to embrace and be happy with what is happening now.
Yes.
While you're waiting for that other thing to come. And I feel like that's really the letting go of the outcome, is I know this is coming, it's on its way, but I'm going to embrace and be happy with where I am now, even if it's not exactly where I want to be.
Yes, yes. And a great example of that is while I was each dream we live presents a next dream, right? But you almost have to, and I talk about this in Joy Seeker, you have to live a dream and step fully into that in order for you to say, oh, I like this, I don't like this, I want to get to the next level. So a big dream that has opened up for me after writing the book has been, I want to move to Sedona, Arizona. And I've been there and I love it. And it's my place. I traveled the world looking for a place, and I went to a place in America and I was like, this is where I want to live. Those red rocks are gorgeous. Yes. So my point with this is something I've kept, well, now it's open with you, but it's something I've kept very much in my heart over the past couple of months. But because I apply the Joy Seeker principles into my life, I know that it's not time yet. It would be rushed if I were to force myself to jump into that. But it is a dream that I hold in my heart. So when I say let go of the outcome, it's the how and the when. And I continue to connect with, like I woke up this morning, I live in a gorgeous loft here in Portland, Oregon. I love it. And it's not so much that I don't want to be here, but I really want to be in Sedona. And I said, I love my loft. I love that I get to hang out with Chance and I get to connect with you today. So I go through the gratitudes, and you have to be happy with where you are, or you're just going to go to a new situation. There you are. We're always with ourselves. So you're still going to take that inner belief. So the way we really manifest, the way we reach the goals that we truly, truly want, it's to be happy with where you are and trust the timing. So I have an idea in my mind, Sedona might happen in the next 2 or 3 years, but I am not going to force it or jump on it right now.
Yes. Yes. No, that makes so much sense. It reminds me of me when I, for years, I was sort of like thinking I'd like to find my person and eventually be with my person. But at the same time, like, it seemed like everybody around me was more concerned about it than I was. And I was like, I just feel like I'm cool with the way things are right now. And when I'm meant to be with that person, I'll be with that person. And I remember going to different mediums and, you know, to connect with my mother who's passed. And she would always say, every time I went, she would say, and this was from like when I was 20 something, I didn't meet my person until I was 38. And I was like 24 years old. And she was like, she just wants you to know that she knows the guy that's coming for you and that you will get married. And like, she kept saying it over. It was like this running joke. Like every time I went, I'm like, yeah. The time is ticking. Like I'm getting, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I was like, I love my work and whatever happens. And I'm not overly attached to it. And then like all of the sudden it came to me. I don't know. And people would say to me, Tammy, you have to not work so much. You have to go out. You have to meet people. And this just came to me. Like a friend of mine just texted me and was like, here's this picture of this guy. I want to see if you're interested. Yeah. And I was just sitting in my office and I was like, well,
that's exactly how it works.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, because that is exactly how it works, no matter what you want, no matter what. And so you held that within you, and it's beautiful. And that's the thing. It comes to us. Yes. If we don't know yet, like if we don't have clarity on a dream, or we don't know exactly how to happen, or we're trying to control it, then that's a sure sign that it's not the right time. You know,
yes,
it will always come to you. What's meant for you will not pass you by. And it will come at the right time.
Yes. And I mean, I did do a manifestation thing like 8 months before I met him. I remember it was the funniest thing, is that I was like, I'm just going to make a list. It was like a new moon or a full moon, one of those moons.
Yeah.
And I wrote a whole list of everything that I would want in a person. Like, you know, he had to love cats and not be allergic because I'm a cat lover.
Yes,
like, you know, all these different things, and how he had to be able to cook and you know, be open to my beliefs and all this kind of stuff. And I will never forget, I went into the backyard with the list and a crock pot, and I burned it in the crock pot in the snow. It was like ridiculous. And I thought, like, what am I doing? This is nuts. But then I let it go.
Let it go.
I let it go. Didn't think about it again.
And that's the key too, right? Yeah. Letting go. I find that some of the biggest things in our life happen when we let go. The thing can come to us because we're not energetically straining it.
Yes, you're not putting up the resistance because you're not thinking about it. Yes, I love that. I love that. Okay, so my last question for you, now that I diverged into stories of my life, my last question for you, and I think it's toward the end of the book, you talk about creating a soul statement. Mm-hmm. Can you explain what is a soul statement and how do we create that? And why is that important?
So a soul statement is something that exists within us. So what we do is we identify our values. What do we care most about in the world? And it's not like the resume checklist, like I value communication and responsible being on time. Like it's nothing like that. It's for example, I asked myself, what is it I really value? When I was clinically depressed and overcoming that really tough period in my life, I said, holy crap, I've been living my life as a half version of myself. I haven't even been living in my truth. And that's why I'm so depressed. And that's why I've been, feeling this way. And I asked myself, what do you value? So I thought that I loved to travel. I thought that was a value, but it wasn't. What you have to ask yourself is, what is it about the thing that you love? What I loved about travel is the freedom it brings, the curiosity, the opportunity to connect with other people and cultures, the learning, right?
Yes.
So your real value, you narrow it down from there. So it's like a step-by-step process. The real value is I love learning. I value expressing myself creatively. I value, connection with people, helping others. So from there, you look at what you value, because this is who you are at a soul level. Like no one can take that from you. So often we're not living by our truth though. And then you can create a statement that aligns with who you are. And I take people through a process in the Joy Seeker, like a step-by-step, and that's what we're doing now. But when I very first left corporate, I had a soul statement. I didn't call it a soul statement then, but it was, the world is my office and I play with it daily. Because I was coming from a corporate place and I was feeling stuck and overwhelmed, and what I wanted, and play with the world is the name of my website and my company. And so I wanted to be able to exist in the world in that place. And play is not, I play every day. That's not what it is at all. And Joy Seeker is not, I am joyful every day. It's about you living in integrity with who you are. That's all. It's about you being your true self. And so today my soul statement has shifted, and I think it's a beautiful process where we can just allow ourselves to align. The reason this is so important is because anytime, there's a lot of distractions in the world, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of choices. Anytime we are looking outside of ourselves at these situations, or you're in a position, should I do this? Should I do that? When you have a soul statement, you are aligned, you are connected, you are so in integrity with who you are and your higher self, that everything else is eliminated. Those choices, those distractions, the drama, you are now living from a place of, I know who I am and I know what I need and want. Anything else that doesn't align with that, I don't need it. And you keep on your path. It's beautiful.
Right.
And that's really the Joy Seeker.
Yes, yes. And you say it's sort of like a mission statement in a way,
Yes,
how
for
people have
sure.
like, yes. And I love that, because like you said, once you have that, if you are evaluating opportunities or evaluating things that you want, you just go back to that and say, it's like your barometer of, is this mine?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
exactly it. Yeah. And I think we can all do it. Just ask yourself, what do I care most about? What do I value? And then you're aligning with who you really are.
Yes. I love it. Oh my gosh, here it is again.
Yeah, it's
Seeker,
so pretty.
yeah, it isn't. I love the colors. I love the paint. I love the graphics.
Thank you.
And I love the inside of it as well. So thank you so much, Shannon, for being with us today. Everybody, Joy Seeker, let go of what's holding you back so you can live the life you were made for. Check this out, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you again, Shannon.
Thank you.
Yay. Okay, I can stop the recording.